James at 16 will not be presented this evening, but will return next week at its regular time. Stay tuned now for a special 2-hour What Really Happened to the Class of 65.
Please support the Word Balloon podcast by going to patreon.com/wordballoon. Become a part of the League of Word Balloon listeners. That's patreon.com/wordballoon. Welcome back, everybody. It's time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress with you. Always happy to welcome my good friend from Monkey Brain Comics and excellent work in film and television, Allison Baker. Back to Word Balloon. Good to see you, Al.
Hey, John. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. We've talked for years about your work in comics and discussed things. I mean, you and Chris Robertson forming Monkey Brain Comics back in the day. That was a big step forward in digital comics. But as I've gotten to become friends with you and stuff, I've learned more and more about you. I knew about your work with Wynonna Earp, the fantastic Sci-Fi Channel show, and you were a big part of that production crew. But also, we never really talked about your work back in the day with Robert Rodriguez. And what did you do for Robert exactly? And don't say everything, because that doesn't tell me anything.
Well,
well, details.
I did a lot.
Well, you can. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure you did. Yeah. And I know. I want to know. Details. What did you do?
This is technically my origin story. So, in film production, basically, I graduated college in winter of '97. My first job out of college. I had worked in commercial film production while I was in school. And I was hired as the office PA on the faculty, which was shooting in Austin. So in '98, I started on that. I think it was around March of that year. And I basically started as the office PA. I got kept on in post-production as the post-production PA. And then I was the accounting clerk in LA at the Sony lot. For a while, until even after we delivered the picture, it came out around Christmas of '98, and then I was still in LA in January, wrapping up everything. So
remind people of the cast of the faculty.
Yeah, I had a lot of people in it. Elijah Wood, Clea Duvall.
Say that name again, because you kind of cut in and out.
Oh, Clea Duvall, Jordana Brewster. The adults were, Salma Hayek, Piper Laurie, Robert Patrick, Chris McDonald, BB Newirth. There was a lot of people in the movie.
That's cool.
Oh, Josh Hartnett was in it too. It was cool. It was a good time. So
that's amazing. Go on.
Yeah, so I started there, and then I kept working for him. So I became Elizabeth's assistant.
Who's Elizabeth?
Elizabeth is his. I'm sorry, I do this, and this is my problem in life.
That's all right.
Elizabeth Avion, who was his wife and producer, I became her assistant, and then once we got into shooting, so we were shooting reshoots for Spy Kids because they wanted extra footage. So we had ADR with the kids. We were shooting Once Upon a Time Mexico. In Mexico, we were prepping Spy Kids 2. Robert was like, I want Allison to be my person. And Elizabeth was like, no, you can't have her. And then I became both of their assistants. And then I got an assistant.
Wow.
So, yeah. So we, it was, we were the first people to shoot on HD in the field with the F900 Sony cameras. I remember buying them and shipping them directly to Mexico because we prepped that movie in 3 weeks. So yeah, at that point, I was kind of like the person that dealt with like all the things happening in the States while we were shooting in Mexico. And then once they got back, I was kind of managing all of the properties because Robert had his own stages, his own mix stage, his own editing facility and everything. We bought our own cameras. So, I had to manage all of that from my financial standpoint, as well as, all the equipment purchases and whatnot. So I learned a lot about corporate tax law when I worked for Robert.
I bet. Now, am I right? He wasn't in the the Directors Guild, and I forget why.
He was indeed in the DGA and the WGA until Sin City. So when they wouldn't allow him they didn't want to allow Frank a co-director credit, and so he quit the DGA, and that's a whole other long story. But in which I had just had a baby, and basically got the call that was like, Allison, you have to come back to the office because it's mayhem, and Robert quit the DGA, and I had to like kind of talk to the ADs, because all of our ADs were DGA. So
sure,
like we lost our seconds, like our second AD and our second.
Because Robert wasn't in the DGA.
We were no longer a DGA film.
Him. Right. Because I mean, honestly, I'm as a WGA, or rather, excuse me, as a SAG member, a Screen Actors Guild member, I will get those notices, do not work for this production company because they don't have a deal with SAG. So obviously the same thing with the DGA.
Well, yeah. So technically, so what happens is anybody that's on the film that is DGA like has to go financial core or leave the picture. And so our UPM, our first AD, and our first ADs were DGA, and we convinced them to go financial core, which meant that we would basically take care of them, like health insurance wise and all that stuff. So, Elizabeth and I were 10 days apart pregnant.
Oh, wow.
At the time. So like she was in LA and just had Rogue. I just had Danny. And so here we basically went to the office every day. It was me and Chris and Danny with them in the corner of my office as I kind of like made sure nobody like lost their minds.
Wow. While you're waiting for your water to break, basically.
Well, no, I mean, I had the baby.
Oh, pardon me. Yeah, you said Danny was with you. Yes, excuse me.
Yeah, I had the baby. So
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, weird. Also, what I always appreciated about Robert beyond the movies themselves was the 10-minute film school that he would do as a bonus feature, and also even the cooking videos that he did as well, which were fantastic. I don't even know. Do you ever look on YouTube or any of those things on YouTube?
I just remember it happening. You see, I was in charge of all the construction on all of the buildings as well. So like the house and the pizza oven, my mother was actually their designer. So like, I remember it being built and dealing with the contractors.
Wow.
So yeah, I kind of like, and I was, by the time I left Robert, I was director of operations. And so like, by the time we were at Sin City, like we had a visual effects company, he was his own composer. So those require separate corporate entities. Like I said, I learned a lot about corporate tax law. And it was a good time. I had, it was like a family, like we, the kids and all the kids were there, and it was a super, especially with all the Spy Kids movies. I mean, like, we had all those kids on sets for so long, and and it just like, it's so fun to see them grow up and be adults now. It's kind of weird, but yeah, it was an interesting time, and I learned a lot, and as I said, like, we were innovators in technology and trying to, bring, digital filmmaking, to the forefront. So that was exciting.
That's so cool.
And complicated.
Well, yeah. I mean, honestly, I kind of think he, as the director, and I would imagine the whole production staff, kind of was writing the book as it was happening in terms of using a lot of these new techniques.
We were in Mexico and we were shooting, and like I said, we were the first people to shoot in the field. Lucas had the prototype on the second prequel Star Wars movie, and so we were the first people to go in the field with it.
With what?
With the cameras and using
with the new Sony camera.
With the new Sony camera, yeah. So like we were shooting to tape, and which I'm sure like people don't even remember that, but like, you know, we were shooting to HD cam, and then we had all these tapes. We didn't have two decks, because we had that and we had an Avid and, you know, and a deck for us to like digitize everything, but like we didn't have two decks to clone everything, because now like, I mean, like, because we couldn't get another deck, so like I would be sent, you know, to LA with the movie. You know, like everything we had shot, like I would hand carry that, you know, to Los Angeles so we could clone everything and have backups.
Sure.
So, so like I was that person, you know, that would be like in Mexico, and they'd be like, "We're gonna send you to Los Angeles with the movie." Like, no pressure. So.
Wow. Jesus.
Yeah.
Any like ridiculous, like, holy shit, the tape got wrinkled and we got to reshoot.
No,
or whatever.
No,
okay.
No, because I was in charge of it, John.
Atta girl.
I wouldn't even let them X-ray it.
Well, of course, yeah. Jesus.
Yeah, and I had to go through Mexico City. Like, I remember, like, that was crazy, because like I remember getting picked up, and like the driver didn't know where he was going, and my Spanish wasn't that great, and I remember having to call, because we had a lot of security with us. I mean, this was 2001,
okay.
Like beginning of 2001, so it's before 9/11. So it was a little easier to get back and forth across the border.
Oh yeah.
And so, but I guess I'll go back, like, just, you know, the beginning of that, prepping that movie, like I said, we prepped it in 3 weeks. It was insane. And, we couldn't get things through customs fast enough. So like the opening sequence, you know, there's like a church shootout sequence with like, you know, like, I don't know if anybody was familiar with the film, but there's an entire like huge like shootout sequence in this church that happened. We did it with all rubber guns, because we couldn't get the guns through customs fast enough. And all of that is all those like shots and stuff are all visual effects.
Sure.
I did like I was like literally the mule. So like I would have like $150,000 camera lens and like hair dye for hair and makeup, and like liquid latex, because they needed it for some reason. And I'm like, it'd be all of my bag. I would come with like these 2 suitcases, and then go through, like, if you got the green light, they wouldn't check your bag. So I would just like, I was coming into Leon in Mexico, and I would like be like, "Oh, I didn't get the green. I hoped I get the green light," you know. And so I would go, you know, with all this stuff, and then like deliver it, you know, and then like when I would go back, because, you know, it was an offshore corporation, and so they paid us in cash. So I'd go down with all the stuff in my bag, and then I'd put all my bags inside of each other, and like I'd have all this cash on me. Anyway, it was insane. So it was a lot of that.
Jeez. Were you and forgive me, because I'm trying to figure out the timeline. And you said you worked on Sin City, obviously, with Robert.
Mm-hmm.
Which is cool. Well, first of all, even going back, any funny moments with some of the celebrities that were on, you know, from some of these movies? I mean, you know, I'll be honest, of all the people I want to know about regarding the Spy Kids movies, I'd probably want to know if you had a Ricardo Montalban encounter. And
I mean, I did. He was lovely. I mean, like,
that's so great.
And Elizabeth, and, you know, for sure, like, made sure, she's like, "I know you're a big fan. Like, I want to make sure that I introduce you." So like I went to his trailer, and I was like, you know, we introduced each other, you know, and stuff and everything. But, you know, I was there with everybody. So like every day, because I was Robert's assistant, and like Robert's back went out on that movie. So like it was bad. Like it was really bad. So he's on a walker. Ricardo Montalban's on a walker. Like, I'm not even like joking. Like, it was like Walker City, you know, at the beginning of Spy Kids, but we had to shoot Antonio out. So it's like, you know, Robert's like taking this pain medication, and it's making him sick. And like, you know, and I just got like hyper focused, because I was just so worried he was going to bend over and like ruin himself even more, you know. But that was pretty stressful on Spy Kids too. That like we were just trying to get through it, and that was a lot because we shot not just in Austin at the stages, but also in West Texas, and we also shot in Costa Rica.
Oh wow! Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So
and again, I'll pick some movie. Also, I do want to talk more about some of the movies that you guys worked on, but I know too that the El Rey Network, was unfortunately a flash in the pan. That I think was a nice. I think the FCC kind of made Comcast create more channels for more diverse creators, and El Rey was created, which was a great idea. And man, they were showing really great stuff. They were showing excellent old kung fu movies and really cool, fun old movies.
Just
but
like
also,
stuff Robert likes.
well, but they had the cult followings and stuff. But then also Robert, I know, got a chance to develop a couple cool things. And I don't know, the TV series Matador. I don't know if you guys worked on, if you were still with him when he was working on that.
No, I left in beginning of 2005. Is that right?
Okay.
2005.
So around when Sin City was.
Sin City was coming out. Sharkboy and Lava Girl was kind of also in that mix or whatever. That was kind of the last couple of movies I did. And we, Chris and I packaged the making of Sin City book.
Oh, I didn't know that. No, was that through Monkey Brain? Did you guys? No,
but it was through Troublemaker. We created an imprint.
His company.
Because I was like, we should do our own books. Like, screw this. Like, this is ridiculous. So we did that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really.
He
cool.
was just in the corner of my office. You might as well put him to work.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. I was wondering.
Holding a baby.
Yeah, I'm sure writing scripts and writing novels and things like that.
He was mostly doing novels at the time, so he was, but mostly holding a baby. And then we made those books, and then we packaged 5 books for Sharkboy and Lava Girl as well. So
5 books, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Like kids' books? What were they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're kids' books.
Okay,
so.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, that was a big. My God, was it 2 movies for Sharkboy and Lava Girl?
I think they did 3.
Yeah, all right. I don't know. Again,
I've lost count of how many Spy Kids movies there are at this point because,
no, I understand.
I was there through the original 1 through 3, and then I was like, oh my God, there's a 5. Like, I did an interview with this podcast that was like the spy podcast that these guys contacted me, and they were talking about the other ones, and I was like, what are you talking about? So,
did you study El Mariachi, the first Robert movie and everything, and just as someone who was working in the company, or even again as an aspiring filmmaker yourself and everything? I mean, did you look at that early stuff?
I was aware of it. I mean, obviously, I didn't go to film school, so in fact, every time I would hire somebody, Robert would be like, "Did they go to film school?" And I'm like, "No," and he's like, "Good." Because he didn't, he like me, or we're in the kind of the same opinion that film school doesn't really teach you. You just kind of have to go and do this business. It's very kind of hard to teach. And film school teaches you how to be a director. So in my head, I was a girl. So I, for a long, long time, I was like, well, I'll be a producer. That's my goal in life, because I could see that, right? Because there are women producers existed. And it wasn't until I was shooting this big AT&T spot, and I'm in my head's in the monitor, and I'm telling the camera operator where to move the crane and everything. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm directing. So yeah.
Any standout stories about celebrities or whatever while you were making these movies with Robert?
Everybody was wonderful. I had a really good relationship with Piper Laurie on the faculty, which was kind of unusual.
Piper Laurie, you said?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. I love her. Oh my God, I love her.
Yeah, she's one. She died recently. I guess last year, a couple of years ago.
Oh, and, I do remember reading that. But yeah, no, I always loved her work. Yeah, brilliant.
And so she was there, and she was, she's been around the block, so she was a little difficult, I guess. And in addition to being the office PA, I also was doing transpo stuff, which is kind of strange. I did everything. I was craft service. I did in the office. I did all of the weird camera equipment pickups. I shipped the film every morning at 6:00. And they also had me pick up actors, pick them up from the airport, run them through hair and makeup when they would first get there, that kind of thing. And so I did get to spend some time with people in the car because that, whatever. But, when I would take her to the grocery store and stuff, and she liked me, and she didn't like anybody else. So then I became her person. So we would go to museums because she was a sculptor.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't think many people do, but that was like she told me, she's like, the only reason I do this work now is to buy my rocks, is what she would say.
Fantastic! Wow.
Yeah, and
that's really cool. Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm 23 at the time, and I spent a lot of time with her. We talk in the car. She's not the friendliest person, but we got along okay. And when she was leaving, she got me a present, and it was like this candle from the wildflower preserve, the Lady Bird Johnson wildflower preserve there, because she had gone with a friend to visit there. And she gave me my present, and she said, she hugged me, and she's like, "You'll be successful in whatever you decide to do." And it was like, it was amazing. Like, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Now, the most fun part about this story is that BB Newirth was also in the film, and I'm in the car with BB Newirth, and I'm like telling BB like the story, right? And she's like, "Oh my God, that's amazing," because she was such a fan of Piper Laurie. And then I'm like, "Okay, you're freaking out because Piper Laurie said something cool to me." I'm like, "But you're BB Newirth."
It's all, as you know, it's all relative, though.
Relative. But yeah, that was the fun part of that, was that BB was freaking out about it, because I grew up in musical theater, so like, she is like the end all be all, and she would tell me stories about like being in the touring group of a chorus line in the 70s, and then getting like bomb threats in Dallas and like all kinds of stuff. So yeah, it was fun.
I just saw a clip of her on a talk show, and I'm assuming it was 90s or early 2000s, where she was sitting down and singing from one of her stage shows and stuff. And it was great. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, we know her as Lilith, of course, from Frasier and subsequent, and of course, Cheers. But yeah, it's like, and I loved her too in Madam Secretary. She was amazing. And no, she's always great. The Julia Child Max streaming series, she's amazing as Julia Child's best friend and everything. No, she's always great. That's really cool. And again, yeah, it's all relative.
She was super fun. And Robert, by the way, Robert Patrick is like one of my favorite human beings on this planet.
One of the great character actors of our generations. Yeah. Absolutely.
Just the nicest guy. Like, we have had, like, I can only name on like one hand the assholes. We've only had a few assholes on our set. Like, everybody's been fantastic, it's just, we've been very lucky. So we were very lucky, I guess I should say.
Sure. But since, that experience, and am I right, Robert's studio is called Troublemaker Studios, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So working down at the Austin facility where everything was in-house, and how many sound stages were there?
We had a giant screen. So what we did was we took over the old state pooling board, which was where they used to keep the governor's plane. Because I don't know if you're familiar with what happened in Austin. Like, they had the airport that was in town, and then they moved it to south of town where the old Air Force base was, and that's where the new airport is. It's been there for 20 years now.
Okay.
But like so we were in that old airport, so we had like tons of space around us, right on top of it, and like the Austin Film Society had their stages like across the way. But at the time we were there was nothing out there. Nothing had been developed. Now they've got developments and housing and shops and all that stuff all like around that area. But when we were there, when we first started building, so we took it over. Spy Kids 2, we didn't have it insulated. So
oh wow.
So it was basically just a giant airport hangar on one side, and then there were two hangars, one on each side, and the office building was in between. And what we ended up doing is we reinforced the roof on the green screen stage, insulated it so it was soundproofed, and then we ended up having like the largest green screen stage in the Southwest United States, because it was the entire length of, like, it was all the way across the entire stage.
Wow.
And then the other stage, we didn't end up building it out, but we would have sets over there. And then we would like rent other, like we would have other places where we would shoot at, like, we would rent out other, warehousey type things. But when we started the faculty, we were in a warehouse in South Austin that was, it had formerly been a makeup and hair distribution center. So the production offices were at the front of the building, and then the back had a huge warehouse in the back. And that's where like Floop's Castle was. We built the sets for that, and like we built the hallways in the school for the faculty. We shot at for the faculty, we shot at like the school for the deaf for the exterior stuff, but we had built interior sets in the stages as well.
That's really cool. I learned a little bit about Uncle Buck's behind the scenes production stuff because they shot at my old high school. That had been closed down. And all the exteriors were in the front where it still looked like a school and everything. Mm-hmm. But yeah, a lot of scenes that it's like, oh, they're at a bar. And it's like, no, they're in a classroom, actually, that they dressed to look like a bar. Things like that. So yeah, it was really interesting to learn, those kind of different, tricks. And again, Robert, coming from the budget of El Mariachi and stuff, I'm sure came with tons of great cost-cutting ideas. And it doesn't surprise me,
Robert was always very adamant about keeping the budgets low, and so by today's standards, we were, in a baby budget. I mean, we shot Mexico probably for to shoot it was like 11 million.
Yeah. And now it's like, oh, it only costs 70 million to make, whatever pedestrian movie.
I don't understand that.
Honestly, Al, I see even on screen. And I'm going to keep my Star Trek specifics as far as my frustrations with the writing. But really, I saw some of the money that they wasted. Like, there were guys that, like, they'd sit and put their feet up, and there was, like, Gold May on the sides of their sneakers to match the Gold May on their uniforms. And it's like, you realize that back in the 60s, they just had black boots. They might have even been Beetle boots, for God's sakes.
But that's not where the money's going, John. Like, that's nothing compared to, like, that's not where it's going. I don't know where it's going, but it's not going there.
Well, all right. I don't either. I mean, that's the thing, because they're certainly not spending the money on the writers. And I respect the actors. I don't think it's the actors' fault that the show is not up to my.
Yeah, I don't know where it's going, but it's going somewhere else. I don't know where.
Yeah. So what made you leave Robert?
It was just time to go. I'd been there for like 7 years, and I really wanted to do political media, and I had met some people that were interested in that, and I just had a baby, and I was just like, I think it's time to change it up a little bit. I do that like every 7 years. It seems like every 7 or 8 years, I just change careers. So,
well, I can even say from broadcasting, it was like that in my 20s and 30s and 40s and stuff, that it was just under 10 years where it's like, all right, I guess now it's time to move again and try something else.
Yeah. Cause I really wanted to, use kind of, because I learned a lot, but I was like, also wanted to kind of use what I learned and for, to make a difference in the world. And so, or so I thought, right. But that was, and I did that for, 8 years. I worked for Joe Slade White for 8 years and did that. And then
slow down. For who? Say it again, but slow.
Oh, for Joe Slade White, who was the man I worked for when I did political media the first round after Robert. So I worked for his firm for 8 years, and I brought HD to that process. They were still shooting on 16, so wow. I was like, you guys are going to broadcast. There's no reason for us to do a film transfer if you're gonna have to digitize it anyway. Like let's shoot on HD. It's cheaper. You don't have the film processing. You don't have to worry. What you're going to get when you see it, that kind of thing. So I kind of try to move them into the next iteration of things.
Were they regional in their political media, or were they national?
We did things all over the place. I mean, my first job for Joe, my first big campaign for Joe was in 2006, and that was Granholm's reelect in Michigan. So as for governor. So that was the governor's race. And so, you start in March basically, and you start making ads and you start testing them, and you start seeing we didn't go up on the air until July, but by that point we had made like 30 ads by that point and knew
Sure.
what we were doing. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So
That's cool. That's really, and it is cool that you brought digital to these people. It's that this was, you really worked within this very transitional period in media in general, and include, starting with Robert. I mean, the internet existed, but it was still kind of an analog world, and it was people like Robert that kind of pushed things forward, and among others, that suddenly more digital equipment and processes existed and made things easier, and I would imagine cheaper.
Well,
like you said.
let me just put it this way. I remember when a terabyte cost $50,000.
I get it.
Yeah.
And now you pick it up at a Radio Shack doesn't
Well,
even
now
exist
it's this
anymore.
big, and like it used to be a rack.
King Sport Cal would like you to list the Rodriguez films that you worked on.
Okay. The Faculty. I'll do it in order. The Faculty, Spy Kids 1. Once Upon a Time in Mexico, Spy Kids 2. Spy Kids 3. Sin City. And Shark Bar and Lava Girl.
That's great. That's fantastic, man. And again,
I'm credited in every one. I got 2 credits on The Faculty.
So you're on IMDb?
I am.
Atta girl.
I don't ever update it, but yes, I am. So.
That's so funny. I'm on there for my 2 little ridiculous credits as well for TV. One for TV and one for movies. There was I don't know if you saw it. It was on Max. I'm not sure if they still have it on there streaming. A documentary called Class Action Park, and it's about this New Jersey water park that was totally constructed with no thought of safety whatsoever. And they would build these ridiculous like thrill rides. Like, for instance, there was an incline that would go out to a man-made body of water, and they would have you ride on basically a sled, and those rollers that are in warehouses to move the boxes along were used as the track. And then it was like an Evel Knievel jump, and you would go out, I don't know how far, and splash in the water, and they would have the kids test the rides.
Yeah, no thanks.
And they would pay kids. Of course, the best was there was a water tube ride that had big, rubber tubes or whatever. And the first couple kids went through, and the next wave of kids, they had cuts on their arms and their legs. That's because the first group of kids were getting bounced around the tubes and losing teeth that would be embedded in the rubber of the tubes and would get cuts on their arms and legs. Now, this water park was next to a Playboy Club. And I had 8mm film footage of my family at a Playboy Club before I was born, back in the 60s, and they went to Jamaica. And this filmmaker's like, hey, I need footage of a Playboy Club. I can't pay you. Can I use this footage for my documentary? And I said, well, at the very least, just give me a screen credit. And I had no idea what I'd get, but I was listed for additional footage.
Well, there you go.
I'm like, great, man. So that and my TV show I did with Ridley Scott, Prophets of Science Fiction.
Right.
I was one of the talking heads on that on the Discovery Channel. So that was a nice thing. But yeah, that was a little more active than me giving them an 8mm film of the Playboy Club. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, I just smuggled stuff into Mexico. I don't know. That's basically all I did. No, I'm just kidding.
So again, you've done a lot of political media. What got you involved with Wynonna Earp?
So when I left political media after 8 years, at that time we had launched Monkey Brain, and I've been talking to Ted Adams a lot about digital comics and just like the business of comics. It's like, and at this point, like Chris had kind of come around, and his notoriety had kind of happened with iZombie and whatnot, and fighting Superman and all that entailed. And so, I was kind of done. Like, political media will kind of like wear you out after a while. I don't know if anybody's experiencing that right now. Imagine living it every day, all the time, on like ridiculous turnaround times and delivery schedules. So I was a little worn out and kind of done. And then my boss was actually kind of winding down his firm. Like, he was retiring. So like I knew that like it was like he was going to start like shedding people, and I had a feeling that I was going to be one of them. And it was funny because like the other woman who worked there, who had been there forever, was like, "It's going to be me," and I'm like, "No, it's not. It's going to be me." So, but I was like, I had to have my foot out the door, and so I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, and I thought, well, maybe I'll just try something in comics, and Ted had announced that they were going to do an entertainment company with IDW Entertainment, and I had seen the article, and I called him, and I was like, "You're going to need me, so you should hire me." And he was like, "Okay." And so they did, and it was a little early for Wynonna, so I went down to San Diego and managed like a lot of their games distribution stuff, which they had also just started, which was kind of a nightmare because they didn't have anybody that could. It was like 52 distribution centers that had to be shipped up to instead of one, which is Diamond, right? So it was a much different situation as far as like the logistics to go to get that product out the door, which was a lot of revenue for the company. So I kind of identified that and kind of made that my pet project as far as like whatnot. And then in the meantime, like Wynonna was getting off the ground, and I explained to everybody, I was like, "You're going to need me up there at the beginning." I go, "I need to shoot behind the scenes footage." I go, "Because you're going to want it for marketing material." I go, "You don't realize you want it right now?" I was like, but if we wait, I go, it'll be too late. And so we need to get it now. Like I need to do interviews with these people. Like, because I was always, when we did movies, with Robert, it's like, it was what they called EPK, and Shannon McIntosh.
The special features,
right? But they also use it for marketing as well. And so, Shannon McIntosh, who I, was, an executive at Miramax, who, in Dimension, who, was like the coolest woman and like awesome, and she ended up being Quentin's producer later, and like she was Quentin's person basically, and is an executive producer on like Django and like all of Quentin's movies going forward. But I wanted to be Shannon McIntosh when I grew up, and she did all the EPK stuff. So she would come down for like a week and would interview everybody. So I knew like from that standpoint, and then I had all the political media experience. So I, there's a like from a marketing perspective, I wanted to build a campaign because I knew wasn't going to have a lot of money to do it, where we kind of like can identify with the people making the show. So then you're kind of a little bit more like connected with it, if that makes sense. So I kind of wanted everybody's personalities to kind of come through, like where it's not just you got the TV show, but then you also like, there's also people behind the show, and aren't these people awesome, and don't you want to know them, right? So that was kind of the idea. And so I go up season 1, I shoot for a couple of weeks, I went like up the beginning, and then I kind of came back again and did another round, and I did interviews the second round I was there. And from that footage, I made extra bonus features for every single iTunes, like for iTunes, I basically made a bonus feature for every single episode of the show. And as the years went forward, they got more and more elaborate. Because in season 2, I shot BTS the entire season, and then from that point forward, I was there the whole time. So they wanted to give me an associate producer credit in the last season, but because I'm not Canadian, I could have only been on set for like a third of the time that I was normally be there and get the credit. But I felt like doing my job as the BTS camera operator was more important than getting that credit. So
okay,
yeah.
Live from the Flying Fish Ranch. I hope I'm saying Flying Fist Ranch, but I forget which. But Wynonna Earp creator Bo Smith says, without a doubt, one of the best people I've ever had the pleasure to work with. Allison is family to my family. So amazing, smart, and organized. Great to see that you're watching, Bo, and great to hear from you, man. And
hey, Bo, I miss you.
I was going to say, we should do a new talk, Bo. It's been forever. So thank you for
I love them. I love them.
And EPK, everybody, that's electronic press kit.
Yes.
And as King Sport Cal says, it's the best stuff on DVDs.
From the olden days, yes, that's what they used to call it, but that's what we still call it.
No, I respect that. And honestly, as DVDs disappear, I'm so glad that there are these secondary Anchor Bay and Vinegar, I forget what it's called, but some of these other lesser DVD companies, because I know the studios are getting out of the business. They don't want to do it anymore. It's too, it costs too much and they don't see the return.
It doesn't cost that much.
Oh, okay. Well, you know
it really
better.
doesn't. Like once you master it, because I did Blu-rays for Wynonna. I didn't get to do season 4 because that's a whole other story. COVID kind of messed up a lot of stuff with that. But yeah, I ran a Kickstarter, and like once you master it, which is expensive, like once you master it, and it's also like getting the material. So I think that, I was already doing the material anyway, and we created another revenue stream, with iTunes and Google Play. We couldn't do it. Amazon doesn't really support that, so we couldn't do it there.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, don't get me started on Amazon. I had a lot of issues with delivering to them. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. That's not interesting. But yeah, so, we would sell the season pass, for $20, right, on the show. So what would happen, because in addition to doing all of the behind the scenes stuff and producing all of that stuff, I would produce also all of the stuff for Twitter. And then I also ended up being the handle in season 2. So I would keep people on for 4 hours, because we would start with the East Coast airing and I'd take them all the way to the West Coast. And then at the end of the West Coast airing, that's when stuff started propagating on iTunes. Then people would stay up and watch my behind the scenes stuff. So it was like, that's why we became this social media kind of darling, because, I was actively creating material and content for that audience all the time. Yep. And I would I had bloopers, I had outtakes, I had, behind the scenes clips, stuff that if you don't, and the thing is that what made it all work was that because the studio was IDW was paying my salary. And so but I just taught myself how to operate the camera, and then I was the one editing it, back in the day. So it was really the only money spent was the money spent to pay for the interview time and, to do the interviews or whatever, which we, utilized crew from the sets and all that stuff and everything. And then, cutting it, and then mixing it and this sound getting composed, the music getting composed and all that stuff like that. So it was, so basically we gave people a reason to buy the season where they would have normally just watched it on television. Right. Yeah. So, that was the idea. It's I wanted to pay for myself. Right. That was the whole idea of from a business perspective, and then it also just, helped the show. So,
Sure. No, I remember. Now, this might have been a couple years before Wynonna. Wait, do you remember what year Wynonna Earp started? Shame on me for not writing this down.
2016.
Oh, really? That late? Mm-hmm. 2016? Because I know years, but pre-2010, when shows were starting to go beyond just making the shows, we would get mini episodes in the summer. And I remember, for instance, for Battlestar Galactica, they had a whole storyline of 10-minute episodes and things. Mm-hmm. And I know Ron Moore was very early in terms of doing commentary.
I think the episode. Matrix kind of fostered that. I don't know if you remember what they did in between movies, but they had the Animatrix, and Absolutely. They kind of they had the whole website, because that was we were at the back end of people shows having websites. That doesn't really happen anymore, but no. we had that was kind of that was still a thing that happened. You know what I mean? So it was kind of transitioning out of that into something else.
Sure.
So yeah.
Well, the stuff you made for the after show viewing on social media, did you ever do live the way that some shows do now? All right, you just watch it. Hey, here's the star, and let's talk about tonight's episode.
I did not, but I was in constant contact with the people who were basically leading the fandom, and would sometimes get on Skype or whatever, because I think Zoom wasn't a thing yet. And so they would have a thing where sometimes the actors would go on just because they were, in season 1, nobody really knew who they. We went from 0 and people knowing who they were to them having millions of followers now.
Sure. No.
But yeah, I had to start from nothing. And so like I kind of let the fan people kind of like run with it. Kevin and Bonnie really, they had like a fan podcast thing that they would do.
Yeah.
You know, after show kind of deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I kind of like, but I brought them in too. Like I was very, cause I was by myself. I was like one person. So, you know, I was like, come help me. You know? Like, so I gave them a lot of access as well. Which, you know, Kevin was like, I've never, because he'd been doing this for shows about, you know, for shows, you know, fandom about shows for years. And he's like, nobody's ever like given me this access. And I was like, okay, well, here you go, I guess. I don't know. Like,
oh, so was Kevin one of the fan leaders?
Yeah.
Okay. Kevin, what's Kevin's last name? Do you remember?
Batchelder.
Okay. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, he's my, you know, my brother in arms. So yeah, they were great help. And you know, it was just kind of a really interesting, you know, I liken it to being lightning in a bottle. Like, I think that, you know, we kind of like were the beneficiary of the like whole thing with that other show that was like the barrier gaze trope that happened. The 100. So they, like, while we were airing, they had this thing happen where like there was an episode of the 100 where like basically a woman's gay partner is killed. And it's like, you know, everybody's like kind of like got up in arms about it on social media. And, you know, Emily was very like, you know, adamant about talking about like how we weren't going to do that. And like literally like we had already shot it, you know, already shot the show. But she kind of made promises that like, you know, we're not going to do that to our characters. And literally like Emily had wrapped one of our gay characters in a bulletproof vest. Like it was so like awesome, you know. But we were all there because I had all the actors live tweeting every week, so they were all on Twitter and so once that hit and then like that news started to cycle, it was like, and then people started to pay attention. And then we were like off to the races, you know, but it took like all that. It was like, it's a really good show. You know, everybody's compelling. There's all this extra material. Like, you know what I mean? Like it kind of was like, and then we kind of got like a little bit more like public notoriety. And then there we are. So
yeah, it was all organic. No, absolutely.
Yeah, it was all organic. None of it was paid.
And I understand that too.
None of it.
What did Sci-Fi think of this? Well, they already had the experience, I guess, with Battlestar, because again, Ron was doing those commentaries, and you know he was putting them out there, and I remember seeing those on separate from the episodes themselves. That again, you can go to iTunes and grab Ron Moore's Battlestar commentary for each episode as a separate thing.
I would share my footage with Sci-Fi, so like basically like I would upload everything that I shot, and I had a really good relationship with them for a long time, where I would be like, okay, I'll do these interviews, and then I'll send you. Do you have questions? I'll ask the questions. I'll send you your questions. You know, like that kind of thing. So we worked in tandem with each other. You know, because I was always like, how can I help? You know, and I would work really, really tightly with their publicist all the time. So like if like EW wanted a clip, you know, I'd cut something special for EW or whatever. But I also like I was like corrected all the stills and like made sure that they were okay to go out and like, you know, that kind of stuff. So like I basically anything with that show like that went out to the world or like the press or anything that wasn't the show itself, like I had my hands in. So
that's really cool. Yeah. Absolutely.
All the San Diego panels I had to cut trailers for.
You read my mind, Al. That was my next thing I was going to say is likely, were you moderating the panels? Were you just,
no, thank God. I was running the AV on the side of the room.
Okay, even.
Yeah.
Sure.
After cutting everything and, you know,
I bet.
all the stuff. So, yeah. And then running the talent. So I would also run the talent. So, like, I would do all their flights, all their hotel, catering, like all the transpo, everything. Like at one point we had our own van, then we had 2 vans, and then one year Sci-Fi took over the transpo and the security because we had to have security at a certain point. The first year I just walked him everywhere.
Well, of course.
Because I was like, nobody knows who these people are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I get it. 100%. No, God, I remember for Tatiana.
I'm just like walking to the back, the back of the convention center. I'm like, we're gonna walk this way because at that point I was like an expert in San Diego, so I was like, I know exactly how to get you in and out of here, in an efficient way. Yeah.
Did you know the hidden shortcuts and everything behind?
Oh
the scenes?
yeah,
that's cool.
At that point, I mean, we started exhibiting in San Diego in like 2005, I want to say 2004, because we had Monkey Brain books, so like we also had
before
that
the comics.
Before the comics.
Right.
Yeah.
I know you had mentioned in the past that like Jess Nevin's books, like on the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, were Monkey Brain books, for example.
Yep.
That's cool. That's excellent.
Yeah, all the League Companions, and then the Encyclopedia Fantastic Victoriana is also us, which nearly killed us, but yes.
I understand.
We are still here.
Kingsport Cal had a question regarding Sin City. How much interaction did you have with Frank Miller on the movie?
I mean, he was there every day. I mean, my office was next to Robert's, so like I saw everybody all the time. I also had a newborn, so I I was also like running everything. So I saw Frank. Chris talked to Frank more. Chris actually was the person who helped them do all the interview stuff. So helped Shannon, figure out what the questions and stuff. So he was kind of useful in that regard, to kind of like make sure that like people were asking the right questions when they were doing all the EPK stuff. So, you got to work every day and everybody's there,
No, I get it.
It's like, and I'm like, yeah, okay. So.
Absolutely. King also wondered what the black boxes were in your back shelves there behind your chair. Yeah.
These here?
Yeah. Those just files?
Yeah.
You have comics in them?
Yeah, there's comics. That's Alan Moore, apparently, right there. It's all labeled. These are Chris's comics. They're Chris's floppies. We discovered that these shelves and these boxes are actually perfect for single issues. Because, I mean, we got rid of like 50 short boxes before we left Texas. So. I
believe it.
Yeah.
No, they pile. That's why, I mean, God bless all the publishers that offer me, hey, you want a copy of the book? I'm like, please send me a PDF. I'm like, my shelves are overflowing. I go. And I mean, the occasional one, I will be like, I'll go to one of the stores and pick up like a hardcover, a nice coffee table book or whatever. But yeah, it's mostly, I'm like, I want to read them. I'm like, and also I want to be able to put up images when I'm doing a video interview. Mm-hmm. And I go, it's I don't own a scanner. So it's like,
right.
Just send me the PDFs and I can copy them and, post them that way and everything. So no, I get it. Isn't it interesting though, that again, all the stuff you made, and I don't even know today, the digital shows how much EPK stuff they make, because again, post shows airing, they don't seem to, rush to DVD. And when they do make DVDs, they're very bare bones these days. They don't have the special features that they did 20 years ago,
I've noticed that they're doing, like, Amazon will do them after like every show, that like if they have an original show or whatever, I've seen them do it. But I'm real particular about that material because like a lot of times it's kind of a little BS-y. It's a little.
That's Allison. This is what I'm saying. Honestly, you're right about that, and that's why I miss.
Because they only come in for a couple of days, like total, and like.
Well, and so, it's a 2-minute.
They're not. Oh yeah, it's a 2-minute thing or whatever. Yeah, like by the time I was doing season 4 in Wynonna, they were 10 minutes, 14 minutes, 13 minutes. Like they were, where I was really showing you like how they practiced to do the stunt work, like how they like did this thing, what this weird thing happened, and things that are funny and weird, and that's all in the snow all the time. And then documenting COVID, because we were in the middle of the season, when COVID hit. So
I didn't know
that was really interesting, because we were supposed to have like a week hiatus, and then everything like started getting weird, like the beginning of March of, what was that? 2019?
2020.
2020. That's right.
Yeah.
See,
yeah.
I have COVID brain.
The only reason why I know is because every now and then I have to do those numbers as well. Otherwise, I'd be like, I don't know, yeah.
But yeah, so I was there, and I was in Canada, and so I remember I was like testing out something for one of my cameras. I think it was a monitor or something for one of my cameras, because I was going to shoot interviews like the next day. And I was in the hallway in between the stages, and Greg Lawson comes up to me, who played Sheriff Nedley, and he's like, "Don't leave." And I was like, "Okay, Greg, like, what are you talking about?" He's like, "Don't leave." He's like, "I'm worried that you won't be able to get back, because like all this weird stuff with COVID was happening."
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So I thought about that, and I was like, okay, And so I delayed my flight about a week. Because I was going to go back to LA and start like assembling my footage, and then I delayed it because I was like, well, maybe we should just stay, And then that next Thursday, they were like, they were starting to shut all the international borders, and so I got out that Thursday and flew back to LA. In a very deserted airport, and they were about to shut down. The next day, they were shutting down the international terminal at Calgary.
That happened in Chicago. Yeah, literally right after. We're literally at 5 years since that all happened. It was March of 20 that they really started shutting things down. And I went to that last C2E2 Chicago convention, and literally that. And I was working at the news station, and that Monday they're like, well, they're canceling the doctor and nurse convention that's going to happen at McCormick Place. And that's where, C2E2 happened. Because of COVID. And it's like, oh yeah, kill off all the nerds with COVID. And don't worry about that last week. But yeah, now all the doctors and nurses can't die. So yeah, we're going to shut everything down. And no, it was insane. And truly, yeah, for like the next 6 months or so, all my buddies, all of our friends that were comic creators, it's like, Jesus, man, we were at the last convention. And also like Tom King and I, the entire week after the convention, it's like, I kind of have like concrud flu. I don't think it's COVID, but I do feel lousy. I'm like, yeah, so do I. And this is before the home tests and shit like that. So yeah, we were like shitting bricks.
Oh yeah, this was like in the dark days, right, when like nobody had anything, and so then it was like we were trying to get the production back up and running, and so we were like the first TV show back,
really,
during COVID.
Wow.
And so we had to and because we had, we're already in the middle, right? We were in the middle of
season 3,
season 4.
Oh, season 4. Go on.
And so we could get back up where the insurance was like gonna kind of cover us, but not if we got sick, right? So not if anybody got sick. Wow. So if anybody got sick, we're screwed basically.
Wow.
And so then it's like, how do I get back? So I'm like trying to look online, like what is the protocols and all this other stuff. And so I fly back the beginning of July of 2020. And I go in, there's this whole process, where I have this quarantine plan, and I have to fill out these forms, and I go to these, once I get through customs, I got to the COVID people, and I talked to them. I'm like, they're going to take me to a hotel or to an apartment. I go, and I'm going to quarantine for 14 days and blah, blah, blah. And so they were really crazy about it. It was which is good. They should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then the production would sent twice. These people in hazmat suits came to the apartment I was quarantining in, and they tested me. COVID tested me twice to make sure that I didn't have it. And then I still had to quarantine for 14 days. But it was funny because nobody knew that I could get through. And so I literally get to the apartment, and one of the producers calls me. He's like, "Are you in airport jail?" And I was like, "No, Brian, I'm not in airport jail." I was like, "Thank God." Yeah, but yeah, really. I just wanted, at that point, I had worked on, I'd done all that stuff for the show. I was I wasn't going to not come back and finish it. You know what I mean? And it was so cool to actually document what the protocols were, because we had to invent them, we had to eat lunch, at the ends of tables.
Social distancing.
We're all in detention, it felt like.
What about shooting scenes during that all, in terms of, because I mean, that's something that I've only talked in general to my friends that are screenwriters and people that were on set. and had that challenge and stuff. But yeah, tell me.
So we had a limited number of people who could be like in the set. Like we had
including
crew.
Group. Beyond director and actors. Yeah, tell me. Yes.
I'm talking about the crew. So like there were
right. No, I'm just trying to explain it for everybody to hear.
If you were in group A as a crew member, like you could be closer, right? I mean, everybody's masked.
Right.
Like the whole time.
Sure.
And it was like the whole protocol was like you touch something, you sanitize. Like because we didn't at that point we didn't know what the deal was, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But the whole thing was like
you
know, that, and then the actors masked up until we were rolling. And then they would unmask, and then they would be but they would also were always in a separate area. So like we couldn't hang out. Like we used to hang out all the time. Like we go to brunch and it was like super fun.
Yeah.
Couldn't hang out. So I would go to set and go home and the grocery store and come home.
Wow.
Like that was it. Like, cause you couldn't really hang out with anybody.
Right. Well, God, again, we all remember 5 years ago. Yeah, that was pretty much everybody's life. But
we didn't have any. We had no cases the whole time.
Wow, that's amazing. That's incredible. God damn, I was just watching Amy Poehler's new podcast, and she had Martin Short on as a guest, and they were talking about the Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary show, and like literally, like at least a dozen, if not more, of the celebrities all got COVID, including Martin Short. I mean, and literally, 3 weeks ago and everything. Yeah, or whatever, 4 weeks ago. Yeah, crazy. So,
yeah, I was so happy to get that vaccine. I cannot even tell you. I was like, get that vaccine in my body.
Al, I am pleased to say I never got it and would get myself vaccinated and did all the proper protocols and everything. And I'm kind of relieved it was weird because I got downsized because of COVID because we were doing 24-hour news reporting. And I was doing traffic in the overnight hours. And they're like, well, nobody's on the roads. We really don't need overnight traffic like we used to. And they cut 6 of us and stuff. I was one of those people. So I think I was very fortunate not to have to. I for the first couple months, they had us do our traffic reports remotely from home because all the digital assets to monitor what was happening on the roads, we could access from home. So it wasn't bad. But yeah, after a while, they're just like, all right, again, this is Odyssey who, they're spending so much money at Odyssey. Lie. And I can say that now because I'm not there anymore. And I kind of have a little bone to pick with Odyssey as a media company. But yeah, I mean, good Lord, I know people that just got laid off in the last couple of months. And it's like they've had a lot of financial trouble over at Odyssey, despite continuing to hire these blue ribbon celebrities to do their podcasts. It's like, okay, whatever. That's fine. That's business.
A lot of the industry is going through, I think, a transitionary period, which I think we talked about a little bit, but not like to that extent. But I think that's definitely happening with feature television and comics publishing, everything. Like it hits everything.
Sure.
So also like the uncertainty about like the economy doesn't help. People don't know like where they should invest money, that kind of thing. So, we're kind of like, I'm excited because, I'm going to Italy next week and I'm going to be meeting with some people in Turin who have an amazing film situation going on there that have a lot of incentives. And so I'm excited to talk to them about the possibility of bringing one of my own projects, but maybe bringing other people there. It sounds really cool, and I'm excited to go visit. So I talked to her today.
Have you ever been? Have you ever been there?
I've never been to Turin. So I've been to Italy, but I've never been to Turin. So
I'm wondering because I know now I'm blanking. Was it? I'm trying to think of one of the Eastern European countries that really got involved with movie production in the last 30 years or 20 years.
Well, Romania, Czechoslovakia, and like all of them, Poland, like you name it, like they've got it. And they're all trying to bring people in, like Europe in general, because they're all in the EU. So it's like once you're in the EU, it gets a little bit easier. But there are like local, there's a local council apparently that is dealing with these film incentives specifically. And so a project that I have was taken to their council. And they're excited. They're actually willing to pay for my hotel and stuff when I'm there, and drive me around. Wonderful. So I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds fun.
that's it. No, and that's incredible because as you said, those countries that you mentioned, I know a lot of various, filmmakers and stuff would make their movies there. And a lot of times, God, it was great, especially, thankfully, some of the old castles and things were still there. So they could make a good fantasy movie in some of these countries on a shoestring and everything. And as I've talked to friends.
Just based on looking at the rates and like what they have available, as far as like resources go, you could shoot anything there. Which is what I've heard, that a lot of stuff that's not set in Europe is shooting in Europe.
Yes,
because because their cost of living is so much less.
100%.
I mean,
yes.
It is like they just don't have to pay like what we have to pay here to live. So you don't have to pay them as much, and it's like, but it's fair, and it's like such a like interesting thing that I'm excited to like kind of explore. And I think that as we go to an independent financing model for features, especially, which I don't see that changing anytime soon. I think that the lower the budget can be, the more opportunities you're going to have for people. And, oh, damn, I have to shoot in Turin, Italy. Boo hoo.
No, that's excellent. And God, I think back to, even the 60s, when all those sword and sandal movies were using the Cleopatra sets that they left standing well after 61 or whatever, when they were finished, filming. And same with the in Spain, the spaghetti westerns that the Italians were making, and they'd leave these ghost towns up that they constructed for their westerns. And again, then the B movie people would come in and use the same sets and things. No, it's all fascinating. And as you say, now they can make not just period pieces or whatever, but any kind of movie. And also even from an American standpoint, how Georgia became, the next little Hollywood 10 years ago or 15 years ago because of those tax incentives, come and shoot here and everything. So, yeah.
Like 40%. So that's almost half the budget.
I'm hip. Huge. No, I get it.
And on top of like the fact that like they're offering all kinds of services that you can't get, in the States. So yeah,
what kind of services?
Well, they have a deal, like this one person has a deal with the university. And so like anything that any costuming or anything that's done, like the university pays the students to do it. Like that's an entire department that's now free.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus.
That's huge.
That's amazing. Yeah, of course it is. That's amazing. God, again.
Especially period stuff. It's a bunch of seamstresses. That's a huge wardrobe department as far as people like managing that stuff. And like even on a regular movie, it's a lot,
I get it. No, that's amazing. Jesus, and again, my brain. Bogdanovich, when he would interview Orson Welles, and I can't remember which specific production he had to make, and literally was going to like local tailors to construct costumes back then because it was cheaper. I know one scene for one of his films, they couldn't get the sets they wanted, so they set it in a steam room,
right?
And that kind of spa and everything. Yeah, no, so crazy stuff. And now where we are now. Also, I noticed with the Oscars, a lot of the big winners were really independent productions.
Yeah.
Which isn't that interesting. And it's pretty obvious that the risk takers are now these smaller A24 Blumhouse kind of studios.
Well, I don't know if you noticed that every time you watch a movie, there's about 8 or 9 production companies at the front of them, which means that's how many people put money in. So it is now that this is where we're going, guys. This is not a studio. There is no studio system anymore. Like, if you want like new stuff that's not franchise movies, go to the theater.
Well, and honestly, you and I were talking before we started recording and everything, and I'm like, do you think we'll get back to theaters? I honestly don't know, Al, because I really don't know, because go ahead, you tell me your thoughts, and I'll tell you my thoughts.
I think people might get nostalgic for it at some point soon. I don't know. We'll see. I think that, I can tell it with the streaming services stuff, like there was no real business model unless you have advertising. It seems that they've figured that out now. So at least that got figured out. I think physical media is going to make a comeback because like, I know a lot of people have lost, like I bought this thing and now I can't access it, that kind of a deal. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I mean, I know the LPs have come back. I know that my partner has a lot of the,
but
so
that,
that's another revenue stream that we've lost in filmmaking as far as features go. That, and then if you give them a reason to, to buy it, not just for the film, but for the extra stuff on it, like I said, it's not that the copies don't cost a lot to manufacture. It is just, it's the mastering of it, and then, having people buy it, and the distribution and whatnot. So it's not impossible. So, if I can do it, like anybody can do it.
I respect that.
That's how I feel about it.
I don't, again, it just seems like the major studios certainly don't want to get back into the dramatic product business. I mean, God, you see the networks and everything, and it's all reality shows and game shows and music specials and things like that. And
really cheap to produce. Yeah, I get that.
Right. And I understand that too. And certainly too, during the strike from 2 years ago, that obviously made things complicated, and that's over.
That was another thing that obviously I didn't mention the strike. That it was COVID and the strike right back to back. That was really damaging to the entire industry. So,
but given that
and to people's livelihoods, as well.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, it's been 5 years since COVID, and like we said, the strikes were kind of, just as we were coming out of COVID, and now it's like, well, here's another reason why you're not going to get any television produced and films produced because of these problems or less. And I just worry that the regular film going audience is getting used to watching this stuff at home on their home theaters, or even if they're satisfied to watch it on a tablet or a phone or whatever. And and also it just seems like Danny's a good focus group person. How do they handle new product? Are they watching on screen? Are they watching?
We go to the theater.
Do they? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
When something new comes out that they want to see, we go to the theater.
All right. Again, that's one person, but still.
You gotta practice what you preach. But yeah.
And that's great. And I'm glad you're raising them that way and everything. I think that's wonderful. But again, I don't know. I mean, I also hear other people that, my kids don't go to the theater anymore. Of course not. Or if they do, it's a Marvel movie or a horror movie. It's very interesting that it's the two ends of the spectrum. The really expensive franchise movies, depending on the thing. I mean, we just saw Captain America kind of fail, in the theaters. And then you've got the $20 million horror movie that the kids want to see. The kids. You know what I'm saying? And it's interesting. But those movies that we grew up on,
horror movie, John.
Again, we got to make a horror
movie. I'm going to shoot in Turin is a horror movie.
For real? There you go. That's fantastic. Well, sure. Why not? No, I mean, come on, man. All those like UA Bowl movies that were being shit out and everything. I think that's his name.
I don't know.
I believe he's a German filmmaker.
I'm not a horror fan. Like, I am not. In fact, like, when Chris came up with iZombie in the kitchen and told me the pitch, I was like, this is the thing that's going to make you famous. And I was like, and I hate zombies.
I basically said the same thing. Not that I knew he was going to be rich, but when Kirkman first told me about Walking Dead, hey man, I got this thing. And I'm like, okay. I'm more interested in the superhero shit you're doing, but okay, good for you. And I'm the same way, Al. I like the Universal movies. I like the Hammer movies. I'm mentioning to everybody, and it's definitely, we're locked in. I'm doing Sven Guli's panel again at the Chicago convention in about a month. And, that's the thing. It's like, no, the shit that Sven Guli shows, that's my jam. That's my horror jam. But I really, when they got really into torture horror, and you got,
by the way, I'm just not a horror person. But.
No, I get it. And also, as a little kid, Exorcist and It's Alive and all those movies, they scared the fuck out of me. They scared the shit. I still haven't seen The Exorcist. And it's like, no, sorry, I don't need. I let myself see the Blair Witch Project 25 years ago, and that was like,
I had to go lay down. It made me so nauseous because we had an early VHS tape of it, and like I was like, I gotta go to sleep. Because it was so shaky cam. Like that always makes me nauseous. So I couldn't finish it. It freaked Chris out like for months afterwards. Like he was like, "What's that noise at the window?" I was like, "What are you talking about?"
I saw it on a summer day in the middle of the day. We came out, it was 90 degrees and bright sun. And I still was like nervous for like a couple days afterwards, anytime I had to turn off the lights. And that last scene of the guy in the basement and he's, is with your back to the camera and everything. I'm like, exactly how they described how they killed some of the kids. It's like, God damn, man, I don't need this. Leave me alone. Jesus. Kari has a couple of comments. I'm glad Kari is joining us. It's just so expensive to get into a theater anymore, at least where I am. Unless you're doing a matinee, you could pay for a month of streaming for at least to go see it. I agree. But then by the same token, Carrie says it is sad, though. The experience of seeing things in a theater can't be matched. 100%, man. Especially both horror films. And it's just fun to see a comedy in a group of people and you get that big crowd laugh,
It's supposed to be a communal experience, right? And like, I think that, even, when we lived in Los Angeles, we were really close to the Cinerama Dome and the ArcLight there. And we would walk down the hill and go see stuff all the time just to do something, right?
Sure.
And it was such a nice, good theater that it was nice to do that. When they closed it during COVID and then it's still closed, I'm pretty sure.
Really? Wow.
And, it just is like, well, like what now? You know what I mean? And, so that's hard. I mean, I know in Portland here, there are theaters that you can go see stuff and they don't charge you, like they charge you like a real matinee price, not like a BS matinee price. But I do understand that everything's gotten a lot more expensive. I think that they could go to a dual tiered, pricing system.
Well, that's funny because I know they've talked about surge pricing for certain films, and it's like I got to be honest, I'm kind of against that. And also, they also have new revenue streams for the theaters and for the studios, for that matter, where you get that half hour of commercials before the previews even start. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, it's like when they're saying, well, there's less people going to the movies, so we have to charge more. It's like, well, that's not going to drive these people that aren't going to the theaters into wanting to see them more. And I'll tell you, Al, living here in Chicago, it's like $20 a movie now, as Kari said. And it's like, that's a month of streaming. That's more than a month for a month of streaming.
Right.
And it's like, and also I will run down the films. I saw Joker 2 in the theaters, and I saw something. Oh, and I saw Captain America recently in the theater. Mm-hmm. I will look at the rest of the marquee, and it's like, I am not interested in these movies. Even the Oscar movies, I am now getting to watch.
I think that's also part of the problem, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think that like people I just don't think we're seeing things that anybody's interested in.
But by the same token, like I also see changing of habits in terms of, like the rom-com that would win the summer when we were kids.
Yeah, of course.
That doesn't happen anymore. Or even an action movie. I always point this out because it was a boom comic book first. Two Guns. Mm-hmm. Stephen Grant wrote the comic and everything. It's a great comic. It was a fantastic buddy cop movie. It had an excellent cast and everything. And it did okay in the theaters, but it really found its audience in the DVD and cable era. And Ross Ritchie and I would talk about it all the time and everything and go, yeah, isn't that weird? And, that kind of movie, Bad Boys 4, I don't know how well that did in the theater. But, there's a buddy cop movie that at least is a brand and an existing IP. But that's the thing, man. I don't know what compels people to see the theaters, to see things in the theater. Because even I was talking to a friend, and I'm like, hey, Captain America: Brave New World. And he's a big Marvel head, and he's like, I'm gonna wait. Well, I don't care. I'm
gonna say something, and I think that what has been lost in marketing is that the marketing of the experience. And I can tell you that like what we did on Wynonna, it was not just a show; it was an experience, right? And that you could do it at home. It was an experience at home in front of Twitter or whatever, but it was an experience, and it was a communal experience that we were having with a bunch of other people that liked the same thing. Just like the Barbie movie, people were dressed up.
Well, that's true.
Like they took pictures and stuff like that. Like you have stuff like that where people like get into it. Like if you do that if you try to market a film and it's fun is my key word here.
No, I hear you. I think Barbie.
I think that's lost a lot in how people market things, if that makes sense.
But I can see it working for a television show because it is a multi-week experience.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a movie and Barbie is, I always was saying, and it was great that Oppenheimer benefited from that whole Barbie Oppenheimer connection and everything, or the one that they created. But I really felt in the case of Barbie, it's like, no, this is a no-brainer because grandma, mom, and the kid have all had Barbies. And they're all going to go together because Barbie is, hold on. Let me finish my thought. And I understand what you're saying. And I appreciate that. But no, honestly, I will stick with that. It's a shared experience because we all have enjoyed this hobby that has gone on for many decades. So counter that thought.
But I would argue that going to the movie, they made going to the movie an experience, and they made that a thing where that was fun. Like it was an experience to just go see the film, right?
Yeah.
That's what I think is lost a lot of time, like a lot of that. Because like we used to be like, you had to go to like the theater to see anything, you know, when we were kids. So it's like, to understand what anybody's talking about, you have to like, but also to understand that experience. And I feel like there's something that can be brought back in that level that's not there right now.
I still think you need a subject of the film itself. And I don't know what would generate that kind of interest to drive people to the theater.
Yeah, no, I agree. It has to be a certain thing.
I don't know what that is.
The movie that I'm going to make. But my point is that, like, I think you can do it. I don't think it's impossible.
Yeah, I suppose.
And we'll see. We'll see if I'm wrong.
Well, that's the thing. This is what what studios are left, and you know how much they want to contend with this. And again, I'm glad that there are the independent studios that are out there that are going to take a chance on Anora and some of the other smaller movies that manage to get attention. But it's weird. I also think the Oscars in general, I don't know, but I mean, you know, like for me, the last year that I really gave a damn about a lot of more than just a movie or two that were being nominated for films was the Ford versus Ferrari Jojo Rabbit year. And I want to say that was like 2020 or 21. But since then, we got a lot of great movies, but they're what I always refer to these as vegetable movies. They're good for you, but I don't know how exciting they are for a general audience.
Well, and unfortunately, I think that what's going on is that the middle movie has been lost.
Absolutely.
And I would like to I think that's what's missing in the mix.
I completely agree. Agree. And in fact, that is the conversation that I've been having mostly with my screenwriter friends and everything. And I've made the same observation. And that's the thing, man. You know, again, you know, the Jane Fonda romance movie didn't cost as much as Star Wars did and still would win the summer, you know, things like that.
Right.
And
well, I will tell you, I was flown to Canyon Ranch with the first cut of The Faculty on a VHS tape.
Okay.
To hand deliver it to Bob Weinstein.
Okay.
And when I got there,
that's the non sexually harassing Weinstein for people.
It is.
But keep going.
True, but sure, let's go with yes, the one who didn't rape people. Yeah. So so I get there and I'm trying to like leave it, and he like comes running out. He's like, Allison. He's like, have you had dinner? And I'm like, no. And at this moment, when I answer no, I realize that I'm about to like be grilled like for the next 2 hours, and like this is like, I don't know how this is going to turn out, but here we go. And I sit down, and he grilled me for like 2 hours, like asking me like a million questions, mostly about myself, you know, and like what I thought about filmmaking and the movie business and like all this stuff. And at one point he said to me, he's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, oh, I want to be a producer. And he's like, well, what kind of movies do you want to make? And I was like, I want to make the kind of movies that when you walk out of the theater, you were like, that was really fun and I had a good time. And he said, Allison, you know more than most of the producers in Hollywood. And I was like, cool.
Yeah.
But I'm right. So like, here's what's missing. Movies that are, when you walk out of the theater, you're like, I'm so glad I came and watched that. That was really enjoyable. And that's because that's the point. right? It's called
Yes.
entertainment.
Yes. I hear you, buddy. No, I agree with you. And then that is the issue. And I worry too that a lot of films are greenlit based on focus groups or some sort of formula rather than really looking at the story. And also that they don't leave the creatives alone to make something great. And, you know, like let the creative people do it. And then it's your job to market it and fund it and everything. And again, if you have a bad experience, absolutely cut loose. But you got to have more faith in the filmmaker. I mean, God, I just heard horror stories about Fox during the pre-Disney years that shocked me.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like the studio situation is the model is gone. So, like, so you're going to get your own financing. So you get to say what you get to do what you want. And so, like, I think that's where we're going. I think we're already there, to be honest.
Yeah, I kind of think we're already there too.
Right now, like I'm like, okay, like I need to raise like $3 million, right? So I can go make this movie. Like I'm not taking this script to
Warner Brothers.
Well, I'm certainly not taking it to Warner Brothers.
Well,
but let's just say Warner Brothers.
well, yeah, I'm using an example. Go on. But no, I get it.
Because it doesn't work like that anymore.
Wow. Yeah, I can only imagine. Well, comics also impacted by first of all, certainly COVID, did its little spell on comics, but also digitally. And I always ask you guys, you and Chris, when I talk to you, is, people that really were on the front line of digital comics, but 12 years ago or whatever it was. And
well, I can't really talk about what I know right now, what's in development. I know there is something in development. I'm crossing my fingers that it gets investment money, but I think that it'll have its day again. It's going to look a little different, but I was sad to see that Dark Horse shut down their digital app a couple weeks ago, and I've heard rumors that Marvel's doing the same thing, but I'm not. I don't
really
have
wow.
I don't have solid information on that. So I
hope
be
not.
Just talking. I'm just going to couch that with I don't know that that's true.
Because I'll be honest, I think DC Universe and Marvel Unlimited are fantastic deals, and they're only about 6 months behind the current product.
Right.
And I mean, I know last year, 2 years ago, I had Jurgens on, Dan Jurgens. And it's like, I never read that Thor run from 2008. I'm going to go back and read it. And I did, and it was great. I'm Jerry Duggan and I have been dancing around since the last time he was on Word Balloon. And it's like, Christ, when I finally book him, I'm going to sit down with that Marvel Unlimited and really catch up on a lot of his shit and everything. So.
But I think a lot of lessons have been learned from the first iteration of digital comics. And I think that hopefully when that comes back around again, if I have anything to do with it, it will be better. So that's all I can say about that.
No, I understand.
But yeah, I think there's definitely a space for it. I think that we've got to address a lot of different issues with that all at the same time. And it just makes sure that the architecture for that has to be very specific from the app architecture. So anyway.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with that, and I'm
still a firm believer in having that as a platform for getting people to read comics.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, well, and look at all the great stuff that's happening with Tapas and Webtoons and these other digital apps.
Yeah, Asia is Alta's crazy about digital comics. They have Asia is in particular Korea in particular is that's huge market for them. So, it can be done.
No, I agree. Kari points out Distillery has been doing some really interesting stuff in the world of digital. The new digital remarks on demand are awesome. Cool. No, I hear you. Yeah. Again, a lot of my friends are certainly making Distillery books and everything right now. So I get it. What else, Al? Is there anything else we can wrap up if you want? I mean, I feel like I'm keeping you from dinner.
I've eaten already, but
atta girl. All right.
Yeah, I'm prepared today.
Well, there you go.
I even washed my hair for you, John.
You look great. Don't worry, hon. You look great. You look great. Seriously, everybody, if you don't know by now, because Al's been on the show many times, we're very good friends, and it means a lot to me that we've known each other for a long time now. And it, again, Al's been a great person, both emotionally and just for someone to call and BS about when it's 3:00 in the morning my time and I can't fall asleep. I know Al will be up, and we're 2 hours away from each other, so it's like, all right, what do we got? What kind of BS can we share and everything? And it means a lot, Al. I always appreciate talking.
I'm happy to do it. I hope it was interesting enough. I've never been on when I've not had something specific to talk about. So
this is a long, as I've learned more and more about you, this is a long time coming, and I'm really glad. And that's why I'm like, we're gonna be fine. And it was funny because Al's like, how about topics? And I'm like, what am I supposed to talk about?
Yeah,
I'm like, I don't know. And I had to think for a couple of minutes and be like
I've ever had a hard time talking, John.
I'm well aware.
Not usually an issue I have, but
I understand. And also, I don't get to San Diego like I used to. So, usually
me neither.
Okay, there you go. I was going to say I could usually count on hanging after hours at the Hilton with Al and everything, and having some fun conversations and stuff. So no, I'm glad that again we are calling each other and hanging out, on the phone or whatever, or even this, obviously. So no, this was terrific, Al. You had a lot of good, information, and really, I think it's good to talk to somebody who, again, is part of this world and experiencing the changes that are happening on these different platforms and everything, and how people are adjusting. So no, I'm excited for you with Turin and everything. I hope all that works out. And all right, so you're going
I'm excited because I get to go to Italy. So again,
yeah. All right. Well, you got to text me when you're back. Obviously, and we'll have a late night.
I don't know when that's going to be, but we'll see.
All right, we'll just let me keep tabs. I got a couple other friends that are obviously traveling internationally right now and residing internationally. So just let me know what's going on. I mean, obviously, when it's 6 hours difference and stuff like that, it might be a little harder to coordinate a conversation. But
oh yeah, but I'll be 5 or 6 hours ahead, so it might be actually easier.
Well, that's possibly true too. So there you go.
You never know.
Excellent. All right, Allison Baker, great conversation as always, buddy. And
thank you, John.
My best to you and Chris Robertson as well in terms of what's coming up. And I want you guys to succeed. And we'll talk about happy things.
Always trying.
There you go. Absolutely. Everybody, thanks a lot for watching. Tomorrow night, more quasi-comic Hollywood conversation. Gabe Hardman is going to be on because IDW is doing a really great Godzilla comic book with proceeds going to the LA fire repairs and help and everything, which is terrific. And Gabe's got the front story. It's pretty cool that they're doing it. And I'm like, Gabe, let's talk Godzilla. And we'll talk about not only the comic and stuff, but also, we'll get into the Toho movies. We'll get into the legendary stuff. Even Monarch, the Fraction Apple TV series that I loved more than I love the legendary films, I'll admit. So look for a good Godzilla conversation tomorrow night. And then eventually, if you're following on audio as well, I've released the audio of my conversation with Brian Hitch. I just wanted to get past the delivery date for the latest Superman Black Label Last Days of Lex Luthor book because Brian did the art, and I wanted to get some spoilery kind of conversation with him about that. And I just want to wait for the book to come out, which, as we're recording this, came out today. So I will be putting out the video probably on Friday of my conversation with Hitch. And we'll talk Ghost Machine as well. So all that's coming up this week on Word Balloon. I'm lining up next week. Until then, everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.